Our Old Testament lesson this morning is taken from Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, verses 11 through 20. Let us then hear the word of our God. Surely this commandment that I am commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor is it too far away. It is not in heaven that you should say, "Who will go up to heaven for us and get it for us, so that we may hear it and observe it?" Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, "Who will cross to the other side of the sea for us and get it for us, so that we may hear it and observe it?" No, the word is very near to you. It is in your mouth and it is in your heart for you to observe. See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I am commanding you today, by loving the Lord your God, walking in his ways and observing his commandments, decrees, and ordinances, then you shall live and become numerous, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to possess. But if your hearts turn away and you do not hear, but are led astray to bow down to other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. I tell you, heaven and earth are called to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live, loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and holding fast to him, for that means life to you and length of days, so that you may live in the land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Our second reading is from the Gospel of Mark, the 10th chapter, verses 35 through 45. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What is it that you want for me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We are able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or my left is not mine to grant, but is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you, you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." I've mentioned it before, but a man by the name of Ruben Gonzalez was in the final match of a professional racquetball tournament. It was his first shot at victory on the pro circuit, and he was playing the perennial champion. In the fifth and final game at match point, Gonzalez made a super shot into the front wall to win it all. The referee called it good, and a linesman affirmed that the shot was in. But Gonzalez knew better. After a moment's hesitation, he turned around, shook his opponent's hand, and declared that his shot had skipped into the wall, hitting the court floor first. As a result, he lost the match and he walked off the court. Everybody was stunned. The next issue of the National Racquetball magazine displayed him on its front cover, and the editorial searched for an explanation of this first ever occurrence in the professional racquetball circuit. Who could ever imagine it in any kind of sport or endeavor? A player with everything officially in his favor, with victory in his hand, disqualifies himself at match point and loses. When asked why he did it, Rubin said, "It was the only thing I could do to maintain my integrity." We've been looking at society's lies to us, and number 5 that we deal with today is said to come from super successful coach Vince Lombardi. He said, "Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing." Would somebody tell that, please, to Ruben Gonzalez? Evidently, he didn't get the word. It really is an absurd statement. Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. I don't believe it. You probably don't believe it, and I doubt that Coach Lombardi did. After all, he was a very religious man. Many things are more important than winning, such as integrity, self-respect, love, and commitment. Having said that, though, following Jesus and being a winner are not mutually exclusive, at least in God's eyes. In fact, Jesus wants us to be winners, but by God's definition of winning. What is the secret of winning in life? Motivational speakers tell us that it is seen in the word WIN, W-I-N, as an acronym. W-I-N, whatever is necessary. The secret of winning in life is to be willing to do whatever is necessary. General George Patton was a 29-year-old officer commanding tanks in World War I. The principal assignment of these tanks was to protect the infantry against machine gun fire and artillery while crossing difficult terrain. There was a big problem, however. These tanks were difficult to see out of, so George Patton led his tanks against the enemy fire on foot, exposing himself. In his own fashion and sphere of influence, Patton was always a winner. Why? He was willing to do whatever is necessary. Not that he was always right in every area of his life. No one is. Jesus' disciples, James and John, one day asked him for a favor. They asked to be allowed to sit on his right hand and his left hand in glory. They wanted to be recognized as winners. They wanted the best seats in the house, places of honor and prestige. But they wanted to be appointed to those choice places, not because they had earned them or deserved them, but because they had influence with the boss's son. Does that sound familiar? Jesus said to James and John, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink from the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" In other words, he was asking, are you willing to do whatever is necessary to see my kingdom established? To their credit, James and John answered, "We are able." And Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right and my left hand is not mine to grant." What does it take to be a winner in life? What does it take to be a winner as a follower of Jesus Christ? Actually, the process is quite simple. First of all, winners pay a price that no one else is willing to pay. Losers take the easy road. Winners are willing to lay it on the line. The ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome was painted by Michelangelo. This required his laying flat on his back, but that posed a problem because he had a bad back. And if he laid on it for extended periods of time, he suffered excruciating pain. Moreover, he had some kind of nasal obstruction that would cut off much of his air supply when he lay on his back. So what did he do? He lay on his back all day, every day for 20 months. He often slept with his clothes on so that he could go to work without losing time in dressing. And he painted one of the greatest masterpieces of all time on that ceiling. Michelangelo was a winner. Total commitment, long, hard hours, focusing on one prize. He was willing to do whatever was necessary. In 1949, an unknown scientist started work seeking a cure for a devastating disease called polio. He worked 16 to 18 hours a day, 6 days a week for 5 years. The ultimate discovery of the polio vaccine would make Dr. Jonas Salk a winner in the world of medicine. Carl Lewis, after he won the gold medal in the 1984 Olympics, was asked how many years he had spent developing his tremendous skills. And he replied, "The day I stopped crawling, I took up running." It's a long time. Winning comes by paying a price. Jesus said, "Are you able to drink the cup that I drink?" We know what winning the battle over death and darkness and sin cost Jesus. Are we willing to pay the same kind of price? Tough question. Pastor Don Emmett tells of conducting a friend's funeral, a friend's father's funeral. The friend's father was of another denomination and was a member of some other church, and 2 other ministers assisted. One of the other ministers of the deceased said, "Our dear brother has worked off and on for the Lord for nearly 40 years." It struck Emmett as a very odd thing to say. He had worked off and on for the Lord. The negative connotation to that statement was not what was intended. What he meant by it was that the man had frequently been of service to the Lord when called upon. He had served many different stints in leadership in the church, but he did have years off. But the negative meaning could apply to many of us. Our work, too, is off and on. It's not consistent. It's hit or miss. Winning comes from paying the price no one else is willing to pay. It's showing up every day regardless of the inconvenience. Jesus asked, "Are you able to drink the cup which I drink?" Winning also comes from making the hard decisions no one else is willing to make. If you want to know why corporation CEOs get paid obscene salaries, here's the answer. They're paid for their ability to make good, quick, and tough decisions. Winners make hard decisions. A doctor by the name of Rufus K. Broadway tells of a heartbreaking decision he once had to make. This is serving as a doctor. He was on a committee when the government was just setting up funding for kidney dialysis cases. They had set up some pilot programs, but the funding was so limited that they had to set up committees to decide who could get dialysis. And Dr. Broadway was on the first committee in the Miami area. One evening, they met to choose between 2 patients because they could only treat one of them. One was a young working man with a wife and 3 children. The other was a lovely 16-year-old girl who was destined to become a concert pianist. One would live, the other would die. It was up to them to decide. Dr. Broadway resigned the next morning because he didn't want to play God in situations like this. We can appreciate his agony. How would you like to make a decision like that? Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions. They just come with the territory. Indeed, the persons who make their mark in this world are decision makers. Luciano Pavarotti was unsure when he graduated from college whether he'd be a teacher or a singer. His father said, "Luciano, if you try to sit on 2 chairs, you will fall between them." Very vivid image. You must choose one chair. Pavarotti chose singing. It took 7 more years of study and frustration before he made his first professional appearance. It took another 7 years before he reached the Metropolitan Opera, but he had chosen his chair and he did not turn back. Eleanor Roosevelt once put it like this: one's philosophy is not best expressed by words. It is expressed in the choices we make. In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die. And the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility. God said to the people of Israel, I have set before you life and death, therefore choose life. Many of us have deluded ourselves into believing that we can achieve our dreams without making hard decisions. And yet deciding is the most godlike characteristic which the Creator has bestowed on us. If being created in God's image means anything at all, it means that we have the ability to choose. Not to choose means giving up that which is particularly human. Winners pay the price no one else is willing to pay. They make the hard decisions that no one else is willing to make. One last thing. Winners are willing to give more than they get. Calvin Coolidge once put it like this: no person has ever been honored for what he received. Honor has been rewarded for what he gave. Jesus said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. This is no pious platitude. He's giving us a formula for successful living. Go-getters will shine brightly for a season. Go-givers are remembered for ages. A monk once found a precious stone and kept it. One day he met a traveler, and as the monk opened his bag to share his provisions with the traveler saw the jewel. He asked the monk to give it to him. The monk did so readily. The traveler departed, overjoyed with this unexpected gift of a precious stone. A few days later, though, he came back in search of the monk. He found him, gave him back the stone, and made a request. Please give me something much more precious than the stone, he said, valuable as it is. Please give me that which enabled you to give me the stone in the first place. The traveler was correct. The ability to give is greater than the ability to attain. Winners give more than they receive. We've had many winners in this congregation. They gave their time, they gave their devotion, they gave out of their financial resources. It's interesting. In a restaurant, when we receive poor service, we will give a tip of maybe 15% in spite of the service. A restaurant where they give better service may get a little bit more. Then there is that which we give to God. For some reason, we would be more embarrassed to leave a tip of 1 or 2% in a restaurant than in God's house. The cup from which Jesus and his disciples drank meant giving everything they had. Are you able to drink from that same cup? There needs to be more folks like the widow who gave $100,000 to East Texas Baptist University. She was asked how she wanted to designate her gift. She didn't understand at first. It was explained that she could give her gift in the name of a loved one. Then she caught on. She wrote on the bottom of her check, in the name and for the sake of the Lord Jesus Christ. She was a winner. How about you? Are you willing to do whatever is necessary, whatever Christ may call upon you to do? Are you willing to pay a price greater than others are willing to pay? To make hard decisions others are unwilling to make, and to give more than others are willing to give and live? Need I say to you that this church has been built upon many people through the years who, because of their heart and being givers and people who follow through on their commitments, were a group of winners. They may not have been winners in the eyes of the world, but they were winners in God's eyes. Their names are not known like St. Paul's or Simon Peter's, but they are truly disciples of our Lord Jesus Christ. And whether they sit at the right or the left hand of God is not the matter that they're concerned about. but they are most certainly in his presence. How about you? Are you made of such stuff? Dr. Halford E. Lecoq once described two people whose deaths made the papers at the same time. The first was a woman who died in London. She was famous as the best-dressed woman in Europe. She left behind almost 1,000 dresses. With each dress, though, she had worn, according to Lecoq, the same unseeing eyes, the same deaf ears, the same enameled, painted face. The second was a man who died in the same city about the same time. He owned but one suit, blue with a red collar on the coat. He was William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army. He had but one uniform, but he lived in 1,000 lives inspired by his example. With which do you most identify? Which would you consider to be a winner? Through our church, we have the opportunity to live in many lives through the ministries which this church supports and has. What an exciting opportunity to participate in a way that our good works live on long after we are gone. Winning isn't everything unless it is winning for Jesus. Then it's the only thing. Win, W-I-N, whatever is necessary. That should be the measure of our living and our giving. When that happens, our church wins, our community wins, we win, and ultimately, and most important of all, Christ wins. To him be all honor and glory forever and ever. Amen.